Hello, dear listeners. Thank you everyone for always accompanying and supporting the Vietnamese Ghost Stories channel over the past time. It is your love and care that is the biggest motivation for us to continue to bring scary, thrilling, and haunting stories every night. If this is your first time visiting the channel, don't forget to click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the latest stories, especially the special ghost stories that are broadcast every night. And right now, we invite you to join us in tonight's newest story, a mysterious and creepy story called Crooked Laughter. What is behind those strange laughs? Let's explore with us right now. These past few days, Mr. Oot has not been happy. He has been upset about the chicken coop being broken into and the chickens being stolen. Strangely enough, the coop was located next to his room and his sick brother who was bedridden, and yet the chickens were still missing. They disappeared so quietly as if nothing had happened. Not a sound, not a cry. Even the normally sensitive Lou did not bark. The more Mr. Oot thought about it, the more angry he felt. Was it because he had built his house in the Luke Suk Palace that for the past few years there had been no chickens to eat during the 3 days of Tet? It had been a long time since his parents passed away, leaving his younger brother half dead. He had never known the taste of meat. Sometimes the fox would come in and eat all the chickens, leaving only a handful of bloody feathers scattered around the coop. A few bloody feathers were even dragged by the mischievous fox to the floor of his and his younger brother's bed. Sometimes thieves sneaked into the house when he was in the field, took the chickens. That little brother was really useless. All day long he just rolled his eyes, grinned with his crooked mouth but refused to speak. And if he could speak, who knows? Maybe the foxes would be afraid of human voices and wouldn't dare come near. On top of that, he couldn't walk. Maybe when he heard human footsteps, his house wouldn't have been robbed, and it was even robbed in broad daylight. But let's not blame him. If you blame him, blame the old man. Why did he give birth to an imperfect creature? And if you think he's an animal with limbs, it's useless when he can't use his limbs for eating or personal activities. The doctors who studied in the Western school, the old man's friends, talked about his illness. He said something about cerebral degeneration or paralysis that Uncle Ut didn't know. He was born to be a tenant farmer. His grandparents and parents were the same. How can one have the words to understand the complicated matters of the elders and predecessors? Calmly thinking for a moment, Mr. Oot hurriedly went into the house, took the spear, and went to split bamboo. There was a lot of bamboo in the land of the landlord Ka, but tenant farmers like him could only ask for the core to use temporarily. People split the bamboo bark to weave bamboo baskets to surround rice containers. Sometimes bamboo was used to weave baskets, winnowing baskets, and to sharpen fishing rods. Rich people with land could freely use bamboo as a multi-purpose product. But poor people like him could only ask for the core of the bamboo to bring home to split into bamboo, to weave bamboo, to make walls. The walls of his house were all made of bamboo. Where it was sturdy, he temporarily laid a piece. Where it was weak, he used 2 or 3 pieces to keep out the wind, warm the house, and protect against storms. Mr. Ut's skillful hands gently split a bamboo stalk into pieces. He used the spear to separate the ends of them into small, very thin pieces. Then he bent the bamboo stalk to crush it and began to strip it into many small pieces, weaving them into the unfinished bamboo mat. When he was done, Mr. Oot covered the mat over a bamboo frame that had been made a few days before. Using small strips and strings, he began to tie them together. By the time the sun was setting, he had finished a rectangular door with a vertical crossbar about 2 inches longer than the side. So he had a door to install in his house without having to go to the market to buy hinges, which would be a waste of money. The long pillar was inserted into a bamboo segment that was driven deep into the ground. The upper end was tied with coconut string, and he had a mill door that could be opened and closed. The other day, because the house had no back door, Lou sneaked in and ate half a kilo of his meat. His fate was truly miserable, and he had no luck with meat. His brother from the next village knew that he had been robbed, and that he had failed in his livestock raising for several years, so he gave him half a kilo of meat. But that damn dog had the audacity to eat half a kilo of his precious meat. But thinking about it, it was strange. Lou had never dared to be so rude. It could hunt mice and catch monitor lizards, but it had never touched the food on the cupboard. I wonder what kind of liver the dog ate to dare to do that. Since B, his younger brother, grew up a little, the lonely house in the deserted area became even more deserted. The neighborhood children did not like to come to his house to witness a pitiful person with many terrible habits. And they were right to be afraid of B. Because his pale face always had a strange smile, his white eyes opened wide and stared at every child with an inexplicable desire. Those eyes looked at no one when the whites were too much to contain the tiny pupils that kept running around. His mouth also looked strange, sometimes distorted or drooping with a long red tongue, every time he opened his mouth to smile at someone. The children in the neighborhood said to each other, "Mr. Oot's younger brother's tongue is so long. It's so long that we don't know if it's really human or not." Of course, these things were whispered to each other by the young and old in secret, because they were afraid that Mr. Oot would hear them and be upset. But the more gossipy things were in life, the easier it was to hear. Mr. Oot accidentally heard them, but he didn't care, because he knew that people were right to be afraid of B when he loved him so much. And sometimes, looking back, he was also terrified. Humans have their own fate, Mr. Oot often said, when he had to take care of a disabled younger brother, separated from the villagers. He had a hard life, and he had to suffer having to carry a drop of blood that he could not bear to throw away. There was no meat to eat. The main food in the house was fish from the fields. This sometimes made Mr. Oot feel more secure. After all, there were countless fish from the fields. Just a few dozen hastily hooked fishing rods would be enough to have something to eat. But B had a hard time eating at home. He was born in a tenant farmer's house, but it was like living in a rich family. He ate 3 grains of rice. The simple fish sauce did not satisfy him. One day he was busy, and after hastily cooking a pot of fish, he threw it away after scooping out a few pieces of fish for his younger brother. When he finished his work and returned, he saw that the pot of fish was not cooked enough, and the smell was still fishy. Yet B had finished eating the whole bowl of fish to save some for himself. Looking at his eyes, Mr. Oot was surprised. It seemed that the boy liked to eat the most delicious food. Normally, he cooked fish very well, but could not satisfy his younger brother. He ate very little, but still grew fast. The only problem was that he did not want to walk like other people. The older he got, the more he smelled, with the smell of chicken and duck lingering somewhere. But he smelled of chicken and duck while the house did not have any chickens. How long could the ducks live with the disaster of foxes and thieves? The neighbors also complained about losing chickens and ducks continuously without understanding the reason. Mr. Oot also saw this, because before the neighbors' chickens and ducks also came here, but each year they disappeared. After that, they disappeared completely. So was it because the foxes were too rampant or the thieves were becoming more and more cunning and crafty? The disaster was a common disaster. But the whispers that reached his ears became more and more difficult to hear. The elderly and children said that his garden was haunted. This ghost specialized in eating raw meat, so no chickens or ducks could live in that garden. Mr. Oot did not pay attention to the idle words. The day he went to the fields, he returned home at dusk. In the morning, he hurriedly cooked rice, then divided it into 2 parts, one to take with him, one for his disabled younger brother. So he only had a relatively leisurely evening, sometimes with a cup of tea, sometimes with a few small glasses of wine. Then he rolled over and slept, waiting for the morning. The farmer's sleep was so heavy, but the rats in the house had become restless and rampant. Now, in his light sleep, he heard them rummaging through the pots and pans, which was very annoying. In the morning, the snakehead fish that had been dried in the sun for just one day had disappeared without a trace. What kind of rats were they? They specialized in eating raw fish, but they never touched dried fish that had been dried in the sun. It was also a pity to lose something after a long time. Many nights, Mr. Oot tried to stay awake, to find out what the rats looked like. As if they understood his intentions, they became quiet, as if they had never been there before. However, when they were too tired, they would just take a nap and make a ruckus in the pots and pans. One day, the bright moon shone through the gap in the wall at the end of the porch, making the room dimly lit. In his sleep, Mr. Oot seemed to see a red silk strip fluttering in the empty house. That faint silk strip appeared and disappeared when he opened his eyes. It happened many times, but he still thought he was dreaming and saw a chicken as a crow. One day, the family next door had a death anniversary, and Mr. Oot was invited over to eat a bowl of rice on the anniversary day. That day, he drank a little too much and got drunk. As soon as he got home, he fell asleep on the bed. The bed was 1.6 meters wide, always enough room for both of them. In the middle of the night, Mr. Oot suddenly woke up when he felt a tickle on one side of his cheek. Something soft like wet silk kept caressing his face. In his drunken state, Mr. Oot thought Lou had gone crazy and jumped onto the bed and licked his face. But when he opened his eyes and looked closely, he saw the red silk strip that haunted him every night, dancing and wriggling. The red silk strip as big as 3 fingers was fluttering, as if playing, teasing the drunk's face. Mr. Ut wanted to reach out and grab the silk strip, but his hand couldn't follow his will. A drunk's hand never obeys its owner's will, and it was just waking up from a nap. The noise made the silk strip suddenly disappear, as if someone had pulled it into a dark place, very close. It seemed to be right next to where he was lying, where B was silently looking at him. Mr. Ut looked at him as if he didn't understand. That guy, why isn't he sleeping at this hour, just opening his eyes and staring at him like that? And why are his eyes so green? No, not green. There was also the flickering light of 2 bright red marbles in them. Looking at him, Mr. Oot suddenly panicked and shouted, "What are you doing, B?" In the dead of night, his shout must have been very loud. It made the boy jump with the sudden change in his face. His eyes no longer sparkled with the strange light they had before. His lips drooped as they had always done. But the strange thing was that his face looked regretful, as if he had just lost a child's pleasure. This is not good. There is something different about this little brother. It's as if he came from a dark place that people cannot know about. Mr. Oot thought so and stayed awake until the rooster crowed in the morning. Today, after pulling the rice seedlings, Mr. Oot went straight to his brother's house in the next village. The 2 brothers were cousins, so they had been close since childhood. They didn't have to hide anything from each other. "Brother Tam, why am I so worried? The boy at home is changing day by day. I don't know what he'll become anymore. I don't know if I'll be able to handle it in the future," he said sadly to his brother. Old man Tam looked at his younger brother with sympathy, mixed with anxiety. He had heard more about his nephew than his younger brother, but he didn't know how to start the conversation smoothly. "I know you're suffering because of him, but what can I do? After all, he's my own flesh and blood." He hesitated at this point, then fell silent. Uncle Ut told his older brother about the strange things that had happened recently. Mr. Tam sat and listened for a while, then advised his younger brother. "Whatever you want to do, you must know the whole story. I've heard many terrifying things about the boy, but I'm still half believing and half doubting. Sometimes I wanted to say something, but I was afraid that he would be sad. There were only 2 brothers. If he was always out in the field, he wouldn't know about the housework. If he wanted to know about Bay's activities, he would have to sneak around to understand. After that sentence, the old man hurried into the house, took out a chicken with its legs tied, and gave it to Oot. "Your face is so pale. Take this chicken home to cook mung bean porridge. I can only help you like this." Mr. Oot had only gone halfway when it started to rain. It was raining heavily. Thunder and lightning were everywhere on the horizon. The road became slippery in the blinding light of the lightning. When he got home, Mr. Oot hurriedly put the chicken in the coop, then rushed out to the field. "If we don't do it, all the rice will be washed away." He thought so and ran faster and faster. About 10 steps away from the field, Mr. Oot suddenly stopped. It wasn't that he was exhausted, he just didn't want to go on when he remembered what his older brother had said. "I have to watch, see what Bay does every time I go to the field." The door of the back house dimly appeared in the rain and lightning. Lou did not run out to greet him like usual. I wonder which neighbor's dog it ran after. The door he made to prevent the foxes from reaching the chicken coop was only 10 steps away when Mr. Oot heard the chickens screaming loudly. "It's those damn foxes again." Mr. Oot grabbed a stick, pushed the door open, and rushed in. The door with the hinge turned with a creaking sound, and before his eyes appeared the evil silk strip from that night. The only difference was that it was very long and red with blood in the flash of lightning. As soon as he heard the noise, the silk strip flew towards the front house very quickly. In just a flash, it disappeared. Mr. Oot looked into the chicken coop and saw only a bunch of blood-red feathers lying there. Quickly walking to the bed, he saw Bay's face as if he was sleeping. But the strange thing was that there was a little blood on the corner of his mouth. "It's not the fox that ate the chicken." The chicken died because of that red silk strip. But what was that silk strip? Why was B's mouth stained with blood in his sleep? After that night, Mr. Oot began to notice many strange things happening in the house. It was normal for farmers to be bitten by leeches when they were pulling rice seedlings or planting rice. Others were bitten by leeches and their faces would dry up after a day, and by the second day they were completely healed. However, the leech wound on Mr. Oot's leg would not heal. It would become muddy with yellow fluid and pus. Sometimes it would last for a week or a month without healing. Finally, he had no choice but to apply medicine. Could it be because of that silk strip? Mr. Oot quickly dismissed the thought in his head because he thought it was strange. But what could it be in the end? So he hatched a plan to make everything clear. In January, the fields were dry and the grass was burnt. This season, the rice had been measured, so everyone competed to go to the fields to hunt mice and catch birds. Mr. Oot caught many birds, brought them home and grilled them until they were fragrant. But B did not eat them. Lately, he had become noticeably thinner. Looking at him, he felt sorry for him because he knew that fishing was a bloodbath. In the afternoon, someone from the next house killed a pig and gave him a pound of meat. He threw the meat on a basket hanging on the kitchen rack, then hurriedly went fishing to catch fish in time for the evening. After walking 3 or 4 rows of the garden, he suddenly remembered the red silk strip and turned back. The door with the mill hinge always creaked, so Mr. Oot put some mud in it. Thanks to this, when he pushed the door open, it did not make any noise. In the dim light, Mr. Oot saw the silk strip dancing in the kitchen. It looked like something that was happily playing, so it did not know the presence of a stranger. Cautiously, gently, step by step, Mr. Oot approached the silk strip. The January night sky was full of bright stars. The converging light of the stars penetrated through the hole-filled roof, illuminating the silent kitchen. Mr. Oot's eyes opened wide to look at that strange object, the thing that haunted him in his sleep every night, the cause of the death of the chickens and ducks. Moreover, He had not tasted meat for 5 years also because of it. Anger, resentment, rage, all because of that evil silk strip. Suddenly, he was stunned. His body was cold as if he had just soaked in water for a long time. The silk strip looked like a tongue, with tiny taste buds protruding from its body. These small fibers trembled, wriggled, scratched at the piece of meat on the kitchen counter. Then it disappeared towards the front of the house, then reappeared immediately afterwards. The movement was repeated with the regular chewing sounds of a child enjoying a meal. Mr. Oot's head was spinning with many thoughts. A human tongue? Impossible. A human tongue cannot be that long. If we were just standing in the kitchen to estimate, that thing would be over 3 meters long, not to mention where it came from. But it was clearly a tongue, not a strip of silk. That tongue was licking the still red mass of flesh lying there, and each time it did, the mass of flesh would shrink before his eyes. Mr. Oot suddenly remembered the rumor and was startled. His tongue stiffened while the red strip of silk was dancing happily in front of the mass of flesh. Mr. Oot's trembling hand groped in the dark, searching for something. Anything that came into his hand at this moment would add courage to a person who was being swallowed by fear. The kitchen was empty. There was nothing within his reach that he could reach. The trembling hand suddenly touched a warm place. It was the fire pit where the bird was roasted in the afternoon. The warmth of the ashes did not make Mr. Oot stop trembling. On the contrary, it increased his despair. There was no way to run away, because there was still Bay in the house. Then he rushed to hold the hideous silk strip tightly. The devil's tongue had lived off the meat in his house. The devil's tongue struggled fiercely with terrible strength. Its body was slippery and full of slime, making it even harder to grasp. Mr. Oot was pushed into the fire pit full of hot ashes. No matter what, he was determined not to let go. A thought suddenly appeared at the critical moment. He quickly grabbed a handful of ashes and gripped the silk strip tighter and tighter in his frenzy. In the room, there was Bay's mumbling mixed with Lou's terrifying howl. The dog's howl seemed to be broken, trembling and scared. Mr. Oot ignored everything, because now he was holding the tongue with his hands full of ashes. But it was very strong. It pushed south, pushed north, then dragged him into the bedroom. The boy kept on mumbling and coughing, his arms and legs waving around on the bed. The light of 1,000 stars shone through the rotten mat on the porch, illuminating the boy's face. The youngest son saw it and screamed in horror. Oh my God! It was no longer a little brother. It was a devil with a long, hideous tongue trying to wrap tightly around his older brother. The tongue, which had been trying to retract at first, now stretched forward, wrapping around the youngest son's neck several times. The tip of the tongue was full of saliva, browned and groping his face. Terrified by what was happening, the youngest son grabbed the machete at the head of the bed, then swung it up. The sound of wooden fish and gongs resounded loudly in the quiet night. The villagers on the edge of the canal next to Mr. Oot's house were shouting and calling for the fire brigade. The fierce fire in the dry season was blazing, illuminating the quiet countryside. When people rushed to the house, Mr. Oot's house had burned down in an instant. The young people used coconut shells to put out the fire to look for the unfortunate person, but found nothing but a scythe and a few pieces of broken earthenware bowls. People were talking excitedly, not knowing if the people in the house had escaped or had been burned to ashes. For a long time after, no one understood what had happened to the 2 unfortunate brothers. Among the suspects, there was only one person who was always silent. That was Mr. Tam, an old man from the next village. He was silent not because he knew nothing, and we should not blame the taciturnity of an old man who was near death, because if one day he did not tell the truth, then how could this horrifying story have happened?